I walked into my sister's wedding with my head held high, expecting to be greeted by family, the people I thought I could trust. Instead, I found an empty chair where I was supposed to sit. No place card. No chair. Oops, I guess we miscounted. My parents laughed, and the room erupted in mockery. That was the moment I realized something. My family didn't see me as family, but what I did next left them speechless. Stick around to find out how I turned their laughter into the greatest revenge. If you've ever felt sidelined, undervalued, or betrayed by the people closest to you, hit that like button and drop a comment below. Trust me, you won't want to miss this incredible revenge story. Make sure you subscribe because you'll want to see what happens next. I'm Susan Harper, 30 years old, and the proud owner of Harper Wealth Fund in Spokane, Washington. For years, I built my reputation in finance from the ground up, putting my expertise into every deal, every client, and every step forward. I helped families plan their futures, mentored young advisors, and made a name for myself in an industry that's cutthroat. But none of that seemed to matter to my family. When my sister Julia and her fiancé Kenneth decided to get married, I thought maybe this was my chance. Maybe this time my contributions would be recognized. Maybe if I helped fund the wedding, if I made it perfect, my family would finally see me the way they saw Julia. I was wrong. Growing up, Julia and I were inseparable. 3 years older than me, she was the brilliant, beautiful one. I followed her around like a shadow, hoping to one day be as charismatic, as successful as she was. I was her biggest fan. Whether we were building blanket forts as kids or laughing together, as she taught me how to charm teachers into giving me extra credit. I looked up to her in every way. But as we grew older, things changed. And it wasn't subtle. My parents, Ronald and Diane Harper, started treating us differently. Julia, who was always the golden child, received a new wardrobe for her debate team finals when she was 16, funded by Dad's paycheck. Meanwhile, I got hand-me-downs. She was always the center of attention, and my accomplishments? They barely got a nod. When I was in high school, I found my passion in finance, investments, stock portfolios, but every time I tried to bring it up, Mom would dismiss me with a laugh, saying, "That's too risky, Susan. Julia's career in advertising is practical." I tried to show them my dedication, my straight A's, the work I put in to earn scholarships for college. But all they ever saw was Julia's potential. My achievements were brushed aside like dust. And as time went on, it became clear. Julia could do no wrong. Her career, though it stumbled, was always an experience. My accomplishments? They were always met with indifference. I kept fighting for approval, kept hoping that one day they'd see me. But as the years went by, the distance grew. Julia's career faltered. She had a major advertising pitch tank when she was 21, and the client slammed her work as careless. My parents? They still praised her. Even when she couldn't pay her bills, they bailed her out. Meanwhile, I was building Harper Wealth Fund from scratch, using my savings, working late nights, and fighting to make my firm one of the top financial advisories in Spokane. At 29, I had built an empire. Harper Wealth Fund was thriving. I'd made deals, mentored younger financial advisors, and grown my firm to the point that it was making waves in the Spokane Business Journal. My name was known. I was respected. But none of that seemed to matter to my family. When Julia got engaged to Kenneth, I saw an opportunity to reconnect with her, to finally be noticed. I offered to cover the wedding costs, the venue, the flowers, the decor, anything to show my love for her. Maybe this would be my chance to finally get the recognition I deserved. "You're covering the wedding," my mom said one afternoon casually. "We've already decided on the Davenport Hotel for the reception." I agreed without hesitation, thinking that my financial expertise and the generosity of funding the event would earn me their respect. I dove into the planning, meticulously selecting every detail. From the blush peonies for the centerpieces to the warm string lights that would drape across the ballroom. Everything was carefully chosen to make the day perfect. I thought it would bring me closer to my family. Maybe if I made the wedding beautiful, they would finally see me. But as I spent hours planning, as I wired funds to ensure every detail was flawless, I noticed something. My family didn't notice me. Julia made all the decisions, while my contributions were disregarded. At a family barbecue, when I mentioned the floral arrangements, my dad raised his glass to Julia's vision, ignoring my work. Mom gushed about the venue's elegance to guests without once mentioning I was the one who paid for it. I didn't let it show, but each comment, each dismissal stung. I was the one who paid for the venue. I was the one who chose the decor. But in their eyes, I was invisible. I tried to hold on to hope. I thought that if I showed them how much I cared, they would finally appreciate me. But deep down, I knew I was being erased. I kept going, finalizing the floral order, working late on the budget, sending texts to Julia asking her opinion. But it was always the same response. Looks fine. Or thanks. Then the day of the wedding arrived. I dressed in a navy gown, hoping to blend in with the elegance of the day, feeling a mixture of excitement and dread. I thought that maybe this was the moment everything would change. But when I walked into the ballroom, the last thing I expected to see was an empty chair. No name card. No seat. I checked the seating chart. Nothing. I walked up to a server, asking if I'd been missed. No seat for you, ma'am, he said, his words cutting deeper than any insult. I walked to my parents, my heart racing. I don't have a seat, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. They exchanged looks, chuckled, and my dad shrugged, saying, "Oops, guess we miscounted." The room erupted in laughter. Oops. A small mistake. No big deal. But for me, it was everything. I was the one who funded this wedding. I was the one who had poured my heart into making this day perfect. And they erased me. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, the sting of their laughter burning deeper than I can describe. But I didn't break down. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. Instead, I forced a smile, turned and walked out the door. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. After I walked out of that wedding, the weight of their laughter still echoed in my ears. I thought about going home, retreating into the emptiness of my apartment, where I could nurse my wounds alone. But something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about a seat at a table. It was about everything I'd done for them, everything I'd given, and how they had erased me. I couldn't walk away without making them feel it. I wasn't their doormat anymore. I wouldn't be invisible. I took a deep breath as I stepped into the cold Spokane night. It was like the air had cleared, as if the act of leaving that room had cleared my head. I wasn't just a passive bystander anymore. No, this time I was going to make them regret treating me like I was less than. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. When I got back to my office, I sat down at my desk, still wearing the navy gown, my heels clicking against the polished floor like a silent battle cry. The wedding was over, but my fight was just beginning. I knew my family didn't just dismiss me. They'd been doing it for years. But now they'd gone too far. The moment they laughed at my absence was the moment I realized they had no idea who they were messing with. I had spent my life earning my place in the world, building Harper Wealth Fund from the ground up, and they had no right to erase me. But I would make sure they knew what it felt like to be erased. I didn't have much time to stew in my anger. Nathan Brooks, a sharp-eyed accountant and one of my closest friends since college, had texted me right after the wedding. "Check your savings," the message read. His warning made my stomach drop. Nathan knew me well. He knew I'd been under constant pressure from my family, and that the last thing I needed was another betrayal. But when he told me to check my account, I didn't hesitate. I logged into my bank with trembling fingers. I had built Harper Wealth Fund from scratch, and every dollar in my savings was hard-earned. But as I stared at the screen, I saw something that made my blood run cold. $200,000 was missing. I froze. How could this happen? I had been meticulous, careful with every cent. I'd built my wealth through years of late nights, hours of strategy and planning. I trusted my family, and now they had stolen from me. I didn't waste any time. I called Nathan, and he met me in a quiet side room of my office. He opened his laptop and showed me the evidence. Emails, bank records, transfers, everything tied back to Julia and Kenneth. They had forged my signature to access my account, siphoning money to fund their own lives, to buy a house in Seattle, a life that wasn't mine to give. I felt sick, betrayed, furious. My family, who had mocked me, erased me, and used me to fund their wedding, had just stolen from me. Julia's agency was failing, her debts piling up from her gambling addiction, and now they had stolen my savings. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was that they had counted on my silence. They thought they could steal from me and get away with it, that I would just let it slide. Well, not this time. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I stood there, looking at the evidence. Nathan handed me the printouts, his voice steady. "This is all you need to take them down." I felt like I had been living a lie for years, desperately clinging to the idea that my family would someday come around, that they would finally see me for who I truly was. But in that moment I realized something: they were never going to change. They would never see me as equal, as worthy, or as someone to be respected. It was time to fight back. I wasn't just going to let them walk all over me anymore. They had stolen from me, humiliated me at the wedding, and thought they could ruin everything I had built. But I would show them that I wasn't the weak little sister they could control. I spent the next few hours strategizing. I knew I had to hit them where it hurt: their reputation. My family was obsessed with image, with appearances, with their perfect, polished lives. If I could expose them for who they really were, it would bring everything crashing down. I didn't just want justice. I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions. I wanted them to experience the shame and humiliation that they had put me through for years. I wasn't going to be erased anymore. The reception continued, but I was no longer interested in playing the part of the dutiful sister. Instead, I took matters into my own hands. As toasts were made and the room buzzed with conversation, I waited. My heart was still racing, my hands slightly trembling, but I knew what I had to do. I couldn't wait any longer. I stood up, my heels clicking against the floor, and walked straight toward the microphone. The room quieted as I took the stand, my eyes scanning the crowd. I could feel their eyes on me, some curious, some already sensing something was wrong. But I wasn't here for their pity. "I have something to share," I said, my voice clear, cutting through the tension in the room. The room fell silent. "I paid for this wedding," I continued. "The venue, the flowers, the lights. But my family left me no seat at the table." Gasps rippled through the crowd. "My sister Julia, Kenneth, and my parents have also stolen $200,000 from me, money that I earned. They forged my signature, used my savings to fund their house in Seattle, and tried to cover their tracks with lies." The room was dead quiet. I held up the printouts, evidence of their betrayal. The looks on my parents' faces were priceless: stunned, frozen, caught in the act. "This is who they are," I said, pointing to my parents, to Julia, to Kenneth. "These are the people who think they can take what's mine and get away with it. But I'm not their doormat anymore." My family's facade crumbled before the eyes of 200 guests. Julia's mascara ran as tears welled in her eyes. Kenneth was red-faced, muttering excuses. My parents stood there, helpless, unable to defend themselves. As their shame and humiliation spread through the room, I walked out, leaving the wreckage of their perfect image behind me. The emotional release of exposing my family's betrayal felt like a weight lifting off my chest. But this wasn't the end. I still had one more thing to do, to make sure they couldn't do this to anyone else. Stay tuned, because the next steps in my revenge would be more satisfying than anything I could have imagined. The aftermath of that wedding night was like something out of a bad dream, except it was real, and it was all my family's fault. I walked out of the Davenport Hotel, the echo of their stunned silence ringing in my ears. The weight of my actions settled over me in waves, but I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I wasn't just walking away from them. I was taking control. They thought they could use me, take advantage of my kindness, my generosity, and my love. But they didn't know who they were messing with. This time I wasn't going to sit quietly and let them trample all over me. They had no idea how badly they'd underestimated me. But as I drove away, the floodgates opened. The truth about my family began to spill out into Spokane's business circles. The whispers started quickly. One by one, clients called, their voices tight with uncertainty. They had heard rumors about me, about how I'd mismanaged funds at Harper Wealth Fund, how I'd taken risks with their investments, how I was a fraud. It didn't take long to figure out that the source of those rumors was none other than Julia and Kenneth. It was an attempt to destroy my business, to dismantle everything I had worked so hard to build. But they hadn't counted on one thing: Nathan. Nathan Brooks, my college friend turned sharp-eyed accountant, was always a step ahead. He had been monitoring my accounts since the wedding, knowing that Julia and Kenneth would retaliate. He tracked down the forged financial statement they sent to one of my major clients, claiming I had inflated profits to hide my mistakes. He pulled up the digital audit trail, showing exactly where the documents had come from. Julia's advertising agency with timestamps, IP addresses, everything tied to her and Kenneth. Nathan had the evidence and I had a plan. I couldn't let this slide. Not now. Not after everything. I sat at my desk going through the paperwork Nathan had given me. Screenshots, emails, everything that proved they had tried to sabotage me. But I needed something bigger. I needed to take them down in a way that left no doubt in anyone's mind about what kind of people they really were. I called a lawyer I trusted, Claire, a fierce woman with a sharp mind who specialized in financial disputes. She reviewed the documents, nodding as she flipped through the pages. "This is airtight," she said. "You've got them." Then I contacted every client I had. I shared the evidence with them, showed them exactly what Julia and Kenneth had done. Their false accusations wouldn't hold up because I had the truth. The public exposure started small. A few clients asking questions, others concerned. But soon word spread. A public thread about Julia's agency's fraudulent dealings went viral. My clients, business partners, and associates were all reading about Julia's fake ad contracts, her gambling debts, and the forged signatures on my savings account. One by one, Julia's clients dropped her. The tech startup that she'd been pitching to? They canceled the deal, knowing the truth about her shady finances. It was a domino effect. The business community turned its back on her. And then the house of cards began to fall. The day I received the news that Julia's agency had folded was the moment I knew I had won. But I wasn't finished yet. No, I still had one more thing to do. Expose the full extent of their lies. I posted everything. Every document. Every forged contract. Every offshore account transfer. I shared it all in a detailed thread across social media and business forums. It didn't take long for the truth to spread. Julia's agency, once a proud business, was now a laughingstock. Clients demanded refunds, the board members turned their backs, and even her own employees began quitting as the truth about her fraud became public. The whispers about her gambling addiction spread like wildfire. But it wasn't just Julia who suffered. My parents, who had tried to defend her at every turn, were also dragged into the mess. My dad, a respected doctor, found himself questioned by colleagues at his clinic. My mom, the ever-gracious community leader, was shunned at school board meetings. They tried to save face by hosting a dinner, a last-ditch effort to explain Julia's side. But it was too late. No one believed them anymore. A week after everything went public, I received calls from family members. Mom, her voice shrill and desperate, pleaded with me. "Susan, you have to fix this. For Julia's sake." I didn't flinch. "Fix it? You want me to fix the mess you created?" "No. This is the price of your actions." My dad's voice was sharp, demanding. "You've already ruined her life. Now you're going to destroy the rest of the family." I let the words sink in for a moment. They destroyed me for years, erased my existence at every opportunity. And now they were asking me to help them? I blocked their numbers. I was done. Looking back, I see the full picture. My family had always tried to define me, make me feel like I was less than. They ignored my hard work, stole from me, and mocked me in front of others. But the moment I chose to stop begging for their approval, I reclaimed my power. They thought they could destroy me, but instead they killed themselves. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and share your own stories of betrayal and justice. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against people who should have loved you? And don't forget to subscribe for more revenge stories, because you won't want to miss what's coming next.